terms and conditions, when we start looking for what's relevant to your business, what we're looking for is the relationships that are generated through your website. If your website is a brochure website, so you're just confirming that you're a legitimate business and this is where people find you, and gives a little bit of information about your business but doesn't allow for any other interaction, then you would have basic terms of use. And you may not need privacy because you may not be collecting any personal information. Now there's a caveat there. If you don't have privacy terms, you can't use things like Google ads or Facebook ads or ads on any of those sort of platforms. So you may still need privacy terms. Apart from people who come to your website for free, the other relationships will depend on how you use your website. So very sophisticated websites will have multiple relationships, and they'll have more detailed terms and conditions. So if you've ever read Facebook terms and conditions, and I do from time to time, not all of them, parts of them, and I did find a fantastic article sometime in the last year which said the readability of Facebook terms and conditions is actually more difficult than one of Stephen Hawking's books. So that sort of says something about how bad they are. But if you read those sorts of terms and conditions, they're actually quite detailed and they're under a multiple of headings and they're dealing with all those different types of relationships. eBay's another example. Their terms and conditions are quite extensive. So if you're running a competition, you'll have terms and conditions about that. If you are selling products, you'll have e-commerce terms, which I talked about before. If you are selling services, you might have booking terms, booking accommodation for Airbnb, that kind of thing. They're different sorts of terms and conditions. If you're allowing people to advertise on your website, like you're selling banners or spaces or advertorials or anything like that, then you'll have terms and conditions around that. If you run a directory site, you'll have specific terms and conditions to do with that directory. If you sell programs, for example, a lot of our clients sell programs in education and people purchase a subscription that allows them to log in and access that information, then you'll have terms and conditions, and depending on whether you have one type of program or multiple types of programs, you might have different terms and conditions that fit across different programs. We have a client who also operates an app. So we put the terms and conditions for the app on the website because apps have to be hosted somewhere and that data is all linked from it. So we put those terms and conditions on the website and they link the app back to the terms and conditions on the website for that. You might have staff access and you might have some rules around that. For example, not sharing passwords. Different types of customers, different members programs and advertisers. Anything that happens on your website that engages people other than your business, even within your business, that may have different terms and conditions. So that's the first thing we do when we sit down with you or we work with someone working on a website. Normally, if you're developing a new website, we'll ask people to give it to us when it's 75% complete so that we can actually see what the user interface is going to be like and how people are going to interact with that website. And then we can more accurately identify what terms and conditions you may need for that website. Other sorts of examples we've had are attendance at webinars for members of the public, attendance at webinars or podcasts for guests, those kind of things. So there's quite a variety of things that you can do with terms and conditions. When we deal with companies that have multiple websites, so they might have different branding around the way they sell different products, then we generally look at how do we create a consolidated set that can sit on one of the websites and be linked back from the other websites. And the reason for that is you've only got one place to change things. So when you need to do updates, you only need to worry about doing it in one place instead of across multiple places. Another thing we suggest is that when people have membership sections, that the membership terms and conditions are not on one of the public facing pages. So they're on a no index, no follow page where they're not going to be found accidentally, and they're linked through. So when a person fills in their details to join up to a program, they have access to the terms and conditions before they join the program, and they can click that link and read them and then say they agree to those terms and conditions. Other things that we suggest, particularly if you're selling products or services, is having those terms and conditions on, again, a no index, no follow page where they're not going to be accidentally found or automatically found, and then linking the terms and conditions in your invoicing, so that not only do people have the opportunity to see them before the point of purchase, but then they also have repeat opportunities throughout their relationship with you to access them again and again. That helps you to ensure that people are always having the opportunity to check them and see them, and also allows you the opportunity to update. However, when you do update terms and conditions, don't assume that new ones are going to apply to existing customers. What you want to do with existing customers is let them know, give them notice that changes are going to come into effect and when they're going to come into effect, and tell the customer that they have the opportunity to opt out before they come into effect. But if they don't opt out, the new terms and conditions will apply. So you have to give people that opportunity. Now, from what I understand, a high percentage of people just continue. They don't worry about changes. You think about it. When you get notice from your bank, any social media provider, any other subscription service that you're part of saying, we're updating our terms and conditions, do you read the updates? Do you check them? Often I do. Do you even bother to pay attention? Once you see that heading, do you just delete the email? Your clients are going to have a very similar behaviour to you. So don't be afraid to make sure that those communications do actually happen. It is important that you give people the opportunity. You don't have to make sure people do read things before they tick a box. Ticking a box is that action has been taken to form a click-wrap agreement. So people agree, once they tick that box, they agree to those terms and conditions, whether they've read them or not. And unfortunately, often people only read terms and conditions when they have a problem. It's just the way things happen. But as long as you've got them in place, they're easy to find, they're easily accessible, and you can demonstrate that you have given people every opportunity to access them before the point of purchase, then you can rely upon them. So, if you have terms and conditions on your website and you have copied and pasted them from someone else, please be careful with that. We have seen them where somebody copied and pasted something from a crematorium and didn't change any of the references, and their business had nothing to do with a crematorium. So it can be a problem if you have copied and pasted, you don't know what jurisdiction that applies to and whether it's actually applicable in Australia. You don't know if the terms and conditions may or may not be directly relevant to your business, and you may have adopted something that has nothing to do with protecting your business. So please just check what you've got and make sure that you're happy with those terms and conditions.